Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the April 7th meeting of the Ipswich School Committee. So call to order at 7:02 p.m. Caroline, would you read us the district mission statement, please?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice, and demonstrating competency.
Thank you. For announcements this evening, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will be on site performing their district review Monday, April 11th through Thursday, April 14th. Schools will be closed April 18th through April 22nd for school vacation week. District offices will be closed on Monday, April 18th for Patriots Day. The Mutual Concerns Subcommittee will meet on April 12th at 3:30. The Communications Subcommittee will meet on May 3rd at 5 p.m. And the Vision 2030 Working Group will meet remotely on May 3rd at 6 p.m. Anyone have any other announcements? Special acknowledgements.
Yes, good evening. A number of special acknowledgements this evening, in addition to what's in the agenda. So I'll start with the Mass Association of Jazz Ensembles. Our group made it to the state finals. Our jazz ensemble received a gold medal with a perfect score. The Lifetime Achievement Award was also awarded to Jerry Dolan for his many contributions to music and jazz education. Congratulations to the high school music program again, who were awarded a number of medals at the MICA Festival this past weekend. Our Bel Canto chorus won a silver medal, the Chamber Singers a gold medal, the Wind Ensemble a gold medal, and the Chamber Orchestra won a gold medal with a perfect score from every judge. So we had perfect scores in both the Chamber Orchestra at that festival and the Jazz Ensemble and their gold award in their. And if you had the opportunity to either attend or stream Stringfest yesterday, it was absolutely amazing. In addition to the kudos to all of the participants and Michael Coelho for pulling that off, Marissa Scarano was not able to be here yesterday, so most of it fell all fell on Michael and the other music educators who just did an incredible job. And I want to give a special shout out to Scott Ames and to Lizzie, who were behind the scenes and who did all of the projecting and recording and the sound for the YouTube channel, which was I actually streamed it, and it was amazing. So congratulations to all of those folks that were involved. That's it for now. We've got a couple more coming up
I have one more. The Destination, did you acknowledge the Destination Imagination teams at the Ipswich Middle School and the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School won their state competition. So they're headed to nationals in Kansas City. In May. So that's very exciting. So congratulations to the Destination Imagination teams in those two schools. Citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments this evening? Welcome.
Back in November.
Just state your name and address, I'm sorry.
I live at 46 Washington Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back in November, the committee was found in violation of the open meeting law. And the state on March 16th confirmed that. And I was wondering if there was any consequences as a result of those actions by the committee?
I was chair at the time, and I believe it was because we said select board meeting prep as our
Correct.
Agenda item, when it should have probably mentioned the elementary school building project as well. So we acknowledge that. I believe we sent you a letter of apology,
You did.
and we read it into the record.
Okay.
And we were reminded to be more mindful of our agenda planning. So that's what we are. And that's what we did.
Very good. I do think it will need a little more consideration in the future, and I'll think about how I want to present that. Thank
That's
you.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Okay, high school student representative report. Caroline Jepson.
Hi, Ipswich School Community. So I have a pretty short report tonight. So like Dr. Blake had said earlier, we had a very successful string festival last night, and the chamber orchestra and other select music groups had an awesome weekend at the MICA festival as well. And also thanks to Mr. Coelho and Mrs. Scarano, they applied for a pain grant in the fall, which meant that soon he Newbold, very famous composer, was able to come and conduct our orchestras. So we played a number of her pieces, and so that was very cool. Also, the Environmental Club will be putting on an Earth Day festival coming up soon, and so to celebrate Earth Day. And the Green Team, as part of their No Idling campaign, just recently installed 2 signs outside the PAC and outside the high school to encourage people waiting for their children to not idle. So that's
I recognize that car.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a way that you're able to track, compliance with that? As to people monitoring?
Not really, but I think we're gonna be working with the Ipswich Police Department to try to find a way to help with that.
Thank you. Any questions for Caroline?
Was there an art component to String Fest last night? I thought I saw.
Oh yes, Thomas O'Connell painted the cello during Paint It Black that the high
That
school
was
is
cool.
performing.
That was excellent.
That was
Yeah,
neat.
that was a cool
And
addition.
I think the composer was enjoying herself as much as everyone in the whole.
Yeah, it was fun
She
to have her
really
there.
One of her comments to both Michael and I, we were in here during the day, and she had commented that Ipswich was one of the top 5 orchestras of students that she's ever had the pleasure of working with.
Right.
So
So I think that's a pretty powerful statement for our music program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I have a question. So, does Carolyn get to join us 2 more times?
Unfortunately.
Oh, once? Or is this it?
No, oh, actually,
No,
I
she'll be
think
with us.
there's a couple more meetings.
Okay.
But
And is this your first term, or is this your
this is my second term.
So what happens, does that mean that there's a new process of selecting your successor?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, next fall I think they're going to be selecting someone. But
It's
I've
part of the
enjoyed my
student
time.
Okay.
government at the high school that they go through a selection process here.
Not to rush it out.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is an acknowledgement and approval of donation by Steve King. So for those folks who aren't aware, Stephen King donated $50,000 to the Ipswich Education Foundation's String Society. This was about a month ago, but we had some scheduling issues, so tonight was the first night Steve could be with us. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the press report from the Ipswich Education Foundation. This transformational gift will fund the Stephen W. King Heritage Collection, which is a collection of 4 professional level instruments, a violin, a viola, a cello, and a bass, which will each be passed down yearly to deserving Ipswich musicians. And these instruments will stay within the Ipswich Public Schools to be played by the principal musicians of each section of the orchestra. The remaining portion of the gift will be earmarked for lesson scholarships for Ipswich string players at all levels, elementary through high school. Just a quote from Mr. Coelho, the orchestra director. He said, "A beautiful aspect of this incredibly generous gift is that it is a legacy that will be passed to multiple generations of student string players in Ipswich. If cared for properly, string instruments can last well beyond 100 years and will create a consistent sound for the Ipswich High School Orchestra." So on behalf of the Ipswich School Committee, we are honored and humbled and amazed at this gift. We have some musicians here this evening. We got a lot of playtime this week, but we got a good group of kids to come together and play us a little piece in honor of this very generous gift.
Yeah, just hold up the volume. This is the violin.
Oh, is that one of the violins?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This is the first one that is.
Beautiful.
You're not allowed to touch it.
I'm not going to. My sister can.
Okay, we're gonna do a couple little excerpts from a couple pieces.
And these guys are from the chamber.
Yes. High School Chamber Orchestra. Thank you very
Thank you,
much
gang.
for coming. I don't
Thank
think
you.
we've ever been serenaded out of
Oh, this is the best. Steve, you have to come every week now. Steve, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Come on, girls.
Stephen is orchestra.
Great job. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you
out.
very
Thanks,
much,
Steve.
musicians. A
Awesome
busy week.
job
Thank
last
you
night.
very much, Steve.
So do we add these
Thank you.
instruments to our,
My pleasure.
Thank
Wherever
you.
there's excellence, I'll always continue to support the town.
Thank you, Steve.
thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
My question too, Chuck.
Yeah.
The insurance, do those instruments added to our insurance policy, we have to make sure that they don't get flooded.
Yes.
Don't keep them in Joy Honor
We'll
Winthrop.
figure it out.
No, the flood was right there
I
in the
don't-
next room.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't,
Jesus.
I'm guessing they don't stay here.
They don't.
I don't think so.
They stay with the student?
Yeah, I will, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of in her possession
Is
for
that,
the
and is that
Right.
the first set of, like, instruments like that?
That is,
in the
yes.
school collection?
Yep.
So maybe that's something everybody can build on. That's great.
I'm unclear if we need to vote to accept the,
I thought we did.
So we're
Instruments.
accepting the gift of the instruments. The money has been
Money.
donated to IEF, and so IEF is providing the funding for the purchase of the instruments. So the school committee is essentially accepting the gift of the instruments.
we don't need to vote on that. Just accept.
Yes, you do need to vote on that. Vote to accept the gift.
I'll make a motion to accept 4 Heritage Instruments.
Second.
With a $50,000 donation that was provided to the IEF.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
All right.
Do you have another, more people outside that want to come in for the report? I'm sorry.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes, so next up is Winter
Yes.
Sports Awards. Tom Gallagher.
I told him 4 minutes, so.
I'm sorry, Kate.
I'm reining him in.
Yeah, good luck.
She's doing a good job.
Because I don't have Hugh tonight. It's just Jeff.
Is he not coming? Watch.
Big group.
Big group? Okay.
Yeah. Wherever you guys can find space, come on in.
Come on in, fill in.
Come on in. Welcome.
Behind us. Is it that many kids? That many students?
Oh, there's.
Parents? Oh, it might
there's
be.
a lot.
You may have to
Okay.
come back to me.
Okay.
You can come down here.
Is everybody in?
You can move down here.
People can slide through if they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pile 'em in.
Try to squeeze everybody in.
So we go from our musicians to our athletes.
Yep.
Tough act to follow.
But I bet a lot of these folks were musicians last night. I think I recognized a few.
Several of them. You get everybody?
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. This is always my pleasure. We get to do this 2-3 times a year. It's looked a little different over the last couple of years, and we get a little bit more normal, I guess, if you will, each season here. If people think about last year, we were doing things like virtual swim meets, where we swim against ourselves for 6 straight weeks and compared our scores against other communities. We ran indoor track outdoors last year because it was the safest place to do that. Fortunately, Mother Nature cooperated a little bit. We played basketball games and had swim meets and stuff like that. Oh, hey, not close enough to the mic. So we had basketball games that were streamed last year. We had no fans in attendance, which is a really weird position to be in when you have a basketball game going on and you can hear all the echoes and the noise. This year, things were a lot different. We were able to put fans in the stands. We were able to compete like we normally had. Indoor track ran indoors and to go back into the Reggie Lewis Center. So there were a lot of great things that happened. And hopefully as we move into the spring season, things will get even a little bit more normal. So I think hopefully kids had a good experience this year. I think we did overall. And I'm excited, as always, to be able to come in and talk to you a little bit about what happened throughout the season. So before I get into individual awards, which are what most of the student athletes are here for, just a few highlights since the last time I was here and from over the winter. A couple weeks ago, the athletic department got notified that we were selected as the MIAA District 5 Sportsmanship Award winner, which was really nice. We were nominated by a school in District 5. I'm not sure who it was, but we found out that we had won. Chloe Pizzeni and Amelia Stacy went in to Gillette Stadium with Nicole LaRoche and I, and we were able to go to the Sportsmanship Summit, which was a nice experience. Truly a nice testimonial to all of our coaches, our student athletes, our fans, and so forth. When you look at that, you're looking at things like showing respect to your opponents, self-control when you're on the court, or in the venues that we participate in. And it's one thing when you step between the lines, you want to be competitive and you want to win. But it's another thing when your program gets recognized for those things like respect and self-control and so forth. So something I think that the school and everybody here should be really proud of. So congratulations to the entire athletic department for that. It was fantastic. A few individual accomplishments that we had. We had a Cal Female Diver of the Year with Amelia Cormier. We had a Cal Baker Division Athlete of the Year for Boys Track with James Roby. Marty Burnett was named the Cal Baker Division Coach of the Year. We had Cal Baker Division Sportsmanship Award winners with Boys Track, Girls Track, Boys and Girls Swim and Dive. And we had some records broken too. In boys indoor track, the 4x4 relay team of Paul Wirtz, Brian Milano, Colin Hansen, and Keith Townsend broke a record that I believe was about 15 years old. So that was quite an accomplishment. And in girls swim, Amelia Stacy actually broke 3 school records this winter. She in the 100 butterfly, the 100 breaststroke, and the 500 freestyle. So some really nice accomplishments there. So congratulations to all of those individuals. So as we're here tonight, basically what we do is we have all-star certificates for all of our student athletes that were named to either first or second team all-stars, or in some sports they're gold, silver, and bronze medal winners. So I have certificates, and as I call your name, if you're here, come on up and you can collect your certificate. So we're going to start with Ray Cuevas, boys basketball, first team all-star. Charlie Henderson, boys basketball, second team all-star. Girls basketball, first team all-star, Carter King. Girls basketball, second team all-star, Jenny Tarr. We have Amelia Stacy, swimming and diving, gold medal in the 200 IM and a silver medal in the 500-yard freestyle. Corinne Anderson, girls swimming and diving, silver medal in diving and the 100-yard breaststroke. Amelia Cormier, girls swim and dive, Cal Female Diver of the Year, as I mentioned before, and a bronze medal for diving. Colin Hansen, indoor track and field, gold medal 600 meter and gold medal in the 4x4 relay. Track athletes are fresh off the 40-degree track out here with about 80-mile-an-hour winds today. We have Finn Russell, indoor track and field, gold medal in the 2-mile. Paul Wirtz, indoor track and field, gold medal 4x4 relay. Brian Milano, indoor track and field, gold medal 4x4 relay. Keith Townsend, indoor track and field gold medal 4x4 relay. Colby Filosa, indoor track and field gold medal 300 meters, silver medal 4x4 relay, and bronze medal 4x2 relay. Olivia Novello, indoor track and field silver medal 55-meter hurdles, bronze medal 4x2 relay. Chloe Pizzeni, indoor track and field silver medal 4x4 relay, bronze medal 4x2 relay. Lily Harper, indoor track and field silver medal 4x4 relay. Amelia Morad, indoor track and field silver medal 4x4 relay. Lucy Harmon, indoor track and field bronze medal 4x2 relay team. We have Aiden Arnold, ice hockey with Rockport, first team all-star. And we have Hallie Greenleaf, who also plays ice hockey in our co-op team with Beverly. She was an NEC all-star. That is our list. So congratulations to everyone. I know it was a great winter season where our spring season's off to a great start already, and hopefully we'll have a big group in here in a few more weeks to recognize our spring athletes as well. So I think we probably want to grab a picture with everybody here. We usually do. So we can step out in the hallway or wherever people want to do that. Might be better in the hallway with the big group. Yep. Thank you very much for having us tonight.
Thank you, guys. Well done. Kick me. Just keep kicking me.
I was about to text you.
What?
I would be mortified.
Oh, that's fine. Take care of myself. Come on, you relish those times sometimes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I get to show you more skiing. All right? This is a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
We stayed, where is it? We stayed.
Who'd you go with?
Four guys that I ski around with. The guy who arranged it had to have his hip replaced. And he's the guy I ski with all the time. We stayed in this hut. We had 22,000 acres. We were a 35-minute flight from the nearest road, which was 85 miles from the nearest road. So we all stayed in this hut in a helicopter. And they'd drop us off. And then we just stayed in this one little hut.
The sprinter, I'm like,
With the ship.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then we stayed upstairs, in these little bunk rooms.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was awesome, but it's a lot of that. A lot of that.
How many hours were you uphill?
7
In a row?
a day for 7 days in a row. We did 54 miles uphill.
So no breaks, no just you
No,
hike for 7 hours
we
and
didn't
ski
lunch,
down.
but look at some of this. Look at it though. It's just stupid. And then we'd eat lunch, We were all over 60. Just beautiful country. And then, this is nighttime.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. But that was the main mountain where we stayed underneath, called Mallard Mountain. But
Did you have to train for this?
no, but all of us that have done this. And this is the type of
7
terrain.
hours?
What? Yeah. These are our tracks going out.
rarely, but I'm
Yeah.
prepared to see it.
Everyone's flying out.
Patients would go away.
How would you decide where to turn
This is,
around
I
and go
guess it's
down?
just different because
We
I
had a
see
guy,
it up close
we had
all
one
the
of the
time.
best guys.
Not all
in
the time,
ICAM.
but I'm preparing to see it.
But we'd ski this stuff, and
It's
it
like
would, this,
watching the
this
kids
like
every
go
day.
on.
Okay, moving right along. We have a overnight field trip request from Kathy McMahon at the middle school. Welcome, Kathy. Hi.
Well, I'm back. I told you I might be. So we are running the sixth grade ecology school. The week after April vacation, we're planning for that, and that's going really well. But we thought that we would try to offer a one-night, eighth grade overnight trip to replace our loss of the DC trip. Nothing can replace Washington DC with three nights and hotels and seeing all the monuments and all the history there, but it just wasn't feasible with COVID to try to put that together and collect all that money. So my eighth grade teachers are great, and they really wanted to give our eighth graders some type of overnight experience to culminate their 3 years of the middle school, especially after these 3 years. So we put together a trip to take them up to Madison, New Hampshire. We found a campsite that will take us. It's a summer camp location that is willing. They're opening early, and they have a retreat center also on their grounds. 1,000 acres of forest and pond and activities. And the retreat center is like a small hotel with rooms that will fit anywhere from 3 to 6 individuals with private bathrooms. And it works out that they were able to fit all of our 8th graders plus the 8th grade staff that will chaperone, or other people who will chaperone. On the way up, we're hoping to stop somewhere and do a hiking trip somewhere in New Hampshire. And just to be outside in nature and walking, no cell phones, talking, socializing, what kids need these days. Up to the campground with campfire and activities, stay overnight, they'll feed us dinner, wake up the next morning, supply breakfast for us, we'll pack up and be out of there probably around 11 o'clock, and on the way back, stop at Chuckster's Family Fun Center for go-karts and mini golf and batting cages, and again, no cell phones, no electronics, just kids running around, being social, talking, having fun. So that's our plan, and be back sometime late afternoon on the buses. So just one night, lots of fun together, kids being kids.
That's a hallmark of the Washington trip too, is no cell phones, correct?
It is, and
Yep.
you know, we still go by that really works well for our students.
Right.
It's what they need. They need a break from all of that.
What are the dates of this, Kathy?
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
June 14th would be leaving, so it'd be that Tuesday morning. We'll be
Okay.
back Wednesday, June 15th.
Okay. And do we have don't we usually get like a paper?
Oh, did you not get anything?
I didn't get any.
Okay.
It's not in our packet.
Okay,
but
sorry.
maybe-
When I thought you were, when they told me I was on the agenda, I thought we had forwarded that. So we will make sure that that's forwarded to you.
Oh,
Yep. It will, we're trying to make it feasible financially also for people. So part of the paying grant that we write each year, the place-based grant will be used for scholarships and some of the funding for the plan. And we're hoping to charge families no more than $125 for the trip. Okay. But I apologize for that. It's an oversight. I will make sure that you get that.
okay.
So the Washington trip has how many kids usually?
Well, most of the class usually goes. We usually get about 90% participation. And I did survey the 8th grade parents this week. We have about 120-something 8th graders. Right now, 80% of them have said yes, they want their student to go, and
Right.
another 15% have said maybe they just need a little more time and information. So we
Fabulous.
should have 90% of the students going. We will also offer day trips to the students who prefer not to do it overnight. So there'll be two different types of adventures that day for them.
Fabulous.
Yep.
And you do the scholarship, you might have said this, but you do the scholarships if 120 is too much for some families?
Yep. We'll offer scholarships to families that need it. We don't leave anybody behind because of finances.
And the chaperones are the 8th grade team.
Most of the 8th grade team. I'll probably be going also, or Mr. Fitz, one of us will go.
Okay.
And then maybe if some other teachers if needed, but it looks like we'll have enough 8th grade teachers that we won't need to ask others to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move to approve the field trip for the middle school to New Hampshire.
Second.
To New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Stay in New Hampshire.
For
Coming your way,
various
Ryan.
As long as they don't end up
activities.
in my backyard, we're good.
Oh, hey, that's a good idea. We'll get you the address.
Please,
That's a great idea. Cookout. That's Dr.
Wait, how
Blake's.
big is your
backyard. Maybe
There's
that could be
some
the
prank that you
location.
have to be able to pull during this trip.
I agree. I agree.
I'll help you with
He's
that.
asking for it.
Right. You're on.
Second.
So pending paperwork, I think. All in favor?
Have fun.
That
Great,
sounds-
thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great
that's
trip.
great. It's
Yeah, working on those
nice, it's
pranks.
nice to give them something, you know, after missing DC and missing a lot
Yeah,
over the
we have
last
missed a lot.
2.5 years, so.
Are you doing that in the yellow school buses? I know the coaches went to Washington DC.
It's almost impossible to get yellow school buses to do anything right now, so we are renting coach buses.
Oh,
Yeah, we found a company
interesting.
that is available those days.
First class? Great,
First class all the way.
great, great.
And I too love the no cell phone policy for these trips. I think it makes a big difference.
It is great. We'll also be taking them to Salem Mad Dash, which has become a tradition, so that will be one day for the 8th graders. And I think I can announce this, but we're looking for a nicer place to do an end-of-the-year dance. And the Ipswich Bay Yacht Club has told us that we could have a dance there.
Oh,
We're
wow.
hoping that that's a new
Beautiful.
8th grade tradition. You know, we have the prom at the castle, and wouldn't it be nice if every year the 8th graders could enjoy
The
that?
senior prom's at the castle, junior prom's at the Hellenic Center,
Hellenic
which is
Center,
also
but
a
also
long
great.
Yep, and now maybe the 8th grade dance will be at the Ipswich Bay Yacht Club every year.
Nice.
So.
Oh, that sounds
Nice. I
excellent.
like that.
Pretty
So
spot.
that's what we're working on. So it's going to be a real nice end of the year for them. We could do
Fabulous.
DC. So.
And that's before Crane Beach, a couple days before Crane Beach Day?
It's that whole week. So Monday night would be the dance. We get up early. We go to New Hampshire for Tuesday, Wednesday. We come back. Thursday is Crane's Beach Day. Rain date or field day on Friday. Full
Sounds
week
like a
of fun.
lovely week.
They'll be very tired and
Yeah.
ready for the summer.
Perfect. We'll have a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I know, I saw Justine May and Christine Ryan out.
Yeah, they're right
in the hallway.
outside.
Yep. Go grab them.
Stay tuned. Next up is a social emotional presentation. Oh, here they are.
So next up on the agenda, just in way of introduction, a couple of months ago, we had a conversation here at the school committee just around the social emotional needs of our students as we're coming out of COVID. And so there were, we brought in some additional resources, but we wanted to have a conversation and a presentation just about what we're doing and how we're meeting this, we're attempting to meet the social emotional needs of our students. So we have with us Justine May and Christine Ryan from the high school this evening to share with us what's happening. And I know they have a presentation prepared, so I will just turn it over to them. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. So we can start, and thank you, Ms. Riggs. So Justine May, I'm the school counseling director at the high school, and Christine Ryan, I'm one of the school adjustment counselors at high school. So we're going to be speaking for the entire district of counselors, but we did consult with them in putting together the information. And, you know, we have the benefit of working really closely with the middle school. We share a counseling wing, we're a little bit spreading through the building now, which is good. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So we're a little bit spreading through the building now, but we basically were able to touch base with all the counselors to get input. But we wanted to let you know, we really appreciate you inquiring and wondering sort of how the kids are doing right now, and so just to give you an update. So we're just going to talk about staffing. We're going to talk about the Ipswich Public Schools mental health services, a bit about the school-specific social emotional learning that is available at the different schools, student mental health, and just sort of what our recommendations are for the future here. Yep, please. Go ahead, one more. So just a breakdown of the counseling staff. It's obviously quite different at the different schools. Oh, I'll have it. Great. Okay. So the counseling staff. So we have. This is just a breakdown. I won't go through and read all the names, but it's quite different at each school. The school psychologists, I should note, they all do testing, and they work with the special ed population largely, but all do testing to assist with maybe around 504 plans and other additional needs as needed. The other, so right now Doyon has Dominique O'Neill as a social worker, and she has 2 counseling interns, 2 graduate level interns that are helping with the increased demand that we're seeing right now, which we'll talk about. Winthrop, Sarah Mitchell, this is her first year. She's been a great addition. And at the middle school, we have Laura Ananian and Allison Tivnan are the school counselors, and Gina Bevilacqua is the adjustment counselor. Again, it's a little bit different, the roles at all the schools and what everybody does based on the nature of the age of the students. At the high school, we have myself, Claire Powers, and Jennifer Starrett are the sort of what was historically called guidance counselors, but we are the 3 school counselors at the high school. We break our students down by alphabet and work with them on a lot of different things around, obviously, post-secondary planning in addition to other matters. But we have the benefit of having Christine Ryan, who has been with us for 6 years, 7, which is great. And Kelly Scott, we were able to add this year through ESSER funds, which has been an unbelievable addition. We have the benefit, as you all know, about the Bright program at the high school, which has been so key with the, again, what we're going to be discussing, and such a need. And again, Rebecca Henry is our school psychologist. So services that are sort of available throughout all the schools, we have individual and small group counseling, student support meetings. These take a little bit of a different form at all the schools, but basically this is counselors, administrators, nurses. At the high school we have athletic director involved in these meetings, but we're going to be meeting weekly to discuss student needs. So the student support meetings that are vital and are a huge collaborative effort. School psychologists also attend those meetings. We consult quite a bit with teachers, working a lot with conflict resolution. Again, through the student support meetings, we work on a multi-tiered system of support, so seeing what the kids need. Some services are available to all students, and just seeing what they need for more specific needs. We're looking at adopting a common sense media for digital citizenship with Amy Gregory. We'll talk a little bit about social media in a moment, but this is a huge need right now. So she's working with the middle school right now and putting together, has begun a program. We have increased the mental health staffing. We have increased, we refer to outside services quite a bit, and we'll talk about that. A lot of community collaboration, and we work with obviously a lot of mandated reporting around 51As and whatnot when needed. Yep. So just a little bit about some of the specific SEL programs or programs that are in place at the Doyon. Community building they work on through K through 2nd grade. They work with a social thinking curriculum. They have Project Adventure, responsive classroom, which they've been doing for a number of years, and they work with the zones of regulation. Winthrop has the Girls Inc. programming in place, again, Project Adventure and responsive classroom and social thinking curriculum.
And then at the middle school, there's TAG, which stands for Transition and Growth, and that takes place in 6th grade health. It always looks like so much fun. They always have like balls and toys, and it just always looks like a blast. I always want to join, it seems like. Grade 6 advisory, Tiger workshops, which is more SEL that goes into classrooms. Expert screenings, so we do those in 7th grade, and we also do them in 10th grade, and it stands for Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral to Treatment. So it's for substance, to just screen the students for substance use. Restorative justice practices, Heart Math pilot, which was a grant that I believe the counselors wrote together, Laura Ananian wrote, and that is a program that helps you monitor, it's like biofeedback, so you monitor your breath and also your heartbeat and kind of controlling your breath and bringing your nervous system down. Digital citizenship that we'll talk about more later, and then the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, the YRBS. We haven't taken it since 2018, and we were due for it. It's every 2 years. COVID gets in the way of everything, it seems like these days, so we haven't taken it yet. And then at the high school, we do grade-specific classroom seminars that the school counselors, sorry, not the counselors anymore, The school counselors go into the classrooms and we have Project Adventure in the gym classes. Again, the expert screenings, college and career counseling, the Bright program, which if, at the end we can touch on that if you're not familiar with it. Basically, it's a program that helps transition students back in from a long-term absence. So if they've missed a significant amount of days, and then again, the YRBS that hasn't been done since 2018. So what are we seeing? I don't think I need to tell you this, but because I'm sure you're all feeling it, that people are not okay, right? The students are not okay. I know a lot of our staff is not okay. We're seeing increased mental health screenings and hospitalizations, and it's students that we aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily on our radar. That's sort of a surprise. I feel like it's kind of sad. The new adjustment counselor, Kelly, is always like, what's the number for mobile crisis again? And I just rattle it off automatically. I feel like I call them all the time. There is such an immense need for mental health counseling outside of school. So a lot of it we're finding is getting pushed back on us as school counselors and school adjustment counselors. So the wait list for outside providers like a mental health counselor or a social worker, oops, sorry, I'm like dancing all around, I'm sorry. The wait lists are just so incredible. We had a student screened back in November, and they were set to go to a partial program, which we'll talk about in a minute, and it took like 3 months for them to get to a partial program. So it's a lot, and what we're seeing and hearing from the hospitals, there's kids that are waiting in corridors, the National Guard is there, it's intense. And then even just on a day-to-day basis, I used to have kids that I would check in with 5-10 minutes. How's it going? Oh, I'm good. These kids are now taking 10-15 minutes. My 10-15 minute kids are taking 20 to 30 minutes. It doesn't seem like they have the grit. I always joke that I need like one of those sand buckets, that you have like in the wintertime, and I just need to like start throwing grit on people, because it's these little things that I think we got comfortable in COVID and didn't necessarily have to deal with it, and now everybody is really struggling to figure out how to deal with it. So that's been really difficult. We've seen heightened levels of anxiety and depression. The social media is just awful. I think it's so beneficial to contact or to connect with people, but it also is so detrimental that, you're comparing yourself or you're missing out on something, or we've seen a significant impact this year on the mental health. We've had increased referrals to 504s and special education. And there's just, in general, it sounds like less availability to early intervention in the lower schools, and then an increased need for tutoring services as well. So I mentioned mobile crisis earlier. If you need the phone number, I have it by heart. Again, I can give it to you. It is an organization run by Leahy, and so if a student comes into me and says, Mrs. Ryan, I'm feeling like I'm having these thoughts, I don't want to live anymore, I want to go to sleep and never wake up, or I'm cutting myself, I call Mobile Crisis, and they can either come to us, we can send them to the student's home, or the parents can take the student physically to Mobile Crisis in Salem. And so from there, it's a more intensive screening process of kind of what's the level of need, what are the thoughts you're having, do they have a plan, are they acting on it, were they planning on it, and then from there, Mobile Crisis recommends what the student needs. So do they need a counselor, do they need a partial hospitalization program, intensive outpatient, inpatient psychiatric, and like I said, there's the wait lists, unfortunately, are so long for these things that it's been really hard, and so we're seeing students that maybe need to go to a partial come back to us while they're waiting, which is really detrimental too, because they're not present up here to be able to learn, and then they're not really getting anything done, so they're even further behind by the time they come back. So, oh wait, can you back one? Oh no, I thought there was more of that. So really quickly, the partial hospitalization is we've seen them do them on Zooms. It's a 2-week program. The student goes to a program from either 9 to 3 or 12 to 6, and it's sort of this intensive group process. They have individual counseling, group counseling, and learning these skills to kind of deal with what's going on. So they're staying at home, they're living at home, but going to this program. An intensive outpatient would be longer. And then you also have the, obviously, inpatient psychiatric hospitalization, which would be they're physically either at the hospital on a ward or they're in some sort of group home that would be a therapeutic setting for a few weeks. So, and the wait lists for those are just astronomical. We have a couple of articles that we can, maybe Laura can send around to you when we're done. That are just helpful just to additional reading, just to see it's not just here, it's not just Ipswich, it's not just Massachusetts, it sounds like it's nationwide, so.
So again, I know I spoke briefly about the impact of social media. I know we're all seeing this quite a bit, but and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce the name correctly, but Jean Twenge, maybe, is the author of iGen, Why Today's Super Connected Kids Are Growing Up Less Rebellious, More Tolerant, Less Happy, and Completely Unprepared for Adulthood. So it's just sort of an idea of discussing the research around social media and some of the not so positive impacts. So just some of the data there, I won't read it to you, but basically, we're seeing a lot of impact, especially based on the amount of time that the students, the more time they're spending on social media, the more we're seeing them report themselves as being unhappy, of being a higher risk of depression, a higher risk of factor for suicide, and by risk factor for suicide, again, stating that they, have a plan to end their life. And girls are especially hit hard by this, social media. It certainly has an impact across the board, but there's, the research has shown that there's a 50% increase in depressive symptoms. So again, this was back in 2018, and we know that students, everybody was spending so much more time on social media and with technology. So again, it was a way that people were being connected, but it was, we're feeling connected. So we're really happy to have Katie Greer is going to be coming next year. I know that Amy Gregory, again, has been working with Tracy Wagner, with Dr. Blake, and to secure her as a speaker next year. So I didn't know much about Katie Greer before, but I have everything. Again, a national internet safety expert. She's going to be the PD speaker, keynote speaker for the staff next year. She'll be, they'll have parent presentations and for students as well. And so I think the focus is going to be on helping use the internet in a safe and productive way, privacy precautions, just sort of figuring out a healthy tech balance, which I know adults struggle with that. Certainly, we know that students really do. Just sort of looking at like the general landscape too, I think of apps and what's out there. I think a lot of parents would be, these kids are so tech savvy too. They definitely understand a lot more than we do, but just really understanding these apps and what's really out there and what they have access to when we don't really realize they do. So I think that'll be really helpful to parents. And I'm fooling myself thinking I don't need my glasses. But really just looking, and also talking about the permanency and the anxiety and depression that the kids are experiencing. So I think, with a positive focus, I know we're coming here and we're talking about things that are really challenging, and they are, and we think it's important that everybody knows that, but we do want to look at solutions and how to help our kids. So again, Katie Greer I think will be a great step towards that. And so recommendations. So what do we feel like we want to do? We certainly do not have all the answers. If we'd be quite well-to-do if we did right now. But I think that our kids would be. But maintaining the current staffing once emergency funding has expired, and exploring adding staff where possible, or additional space for places, offices and meetings, because that's definitely. Like I said, it's a good problem that we have right now, but it is a problem. People need a private space to meet with the kids. It's accessible. Increasing parent resources, we'd like to continue to do that, and continuing to roll out the digital citizenship program, because we really see this as being, this is just, they're growing up with technology, and just really helping them sort of forge that difference. And we definitely want to thank all of you. We want to thank the staff in the district, parents, students. We really have had, we didn't highlight the nurses here. The nurses pre-pandemic have been so involved with the social and emotional needs of our kids. Many kids either trust them and go to see them when they're feeling symptoms of anxiety or depression, or a lot of things are show up, somatic symptoms. And we wouldn't be able to do our job and help our kids without them, and the teachers that identify students and students that identify students. We really have been, I know it's been very busy, we worry about the kids, but we really are very happy that the kids do come down, let us know when they're struggling, or let us know when a friend is struggling, or parents let us know when they're hearing about their own kids or other kids struggling, teachers, again, and just everybody has been wonderful. So we really appreciate administration, the support of administration, and everybody in the buildings. And again, thank you for listening to us. Any questions? I'm a fast talker. Yeah.
So thanks as always, Justine. It's amazing the transformation within guidance that I've seen in my years on the committee.
Yep.
How much more deeply you interact with the kids and how much more challenging the caseload and the number of kids you have is. I think one of the things I've also seen change in recent years is student involvement in mental health awareness. And I know that my daughter is very involved in 40% Club and Interact.
Absolutely.
They spend a lot of time making students aware themselves of how they're feeling and how they're managing and trying to support their fellow students. And I think that effort is very different than in the past when people, A, weren't aware, and B, when they were aware, they covered it up or denied it.
Absolutely.
Now it's engaged in the same way our student population has always been very good about, respect and diversity and so forth. I think they've really grasped on to mental health as that other side of diversity, that other side of healthy relationships with your peers. And I think it's really built on the strengths of our school to accept, understand others and to grow. So I think that of all the people who've had struggles here, it's the students, and I think they've also had the ability to reach out to each other. And
I think so.
Especially at the high school level, I think that's been really, really valuable.
Yep, and I think we're seeing it at the middle school as well, and I think it's we used to have it where kids would come to the high school and we'd be like, oh, getting called down to guidance, it doesn't mean, it's just, there was more of a stigma. I think they weren't used to it, but it's so different, and now I think the counselors at every level are so involved with the kids. And it's become a bit normalized, and kids coming down to see, they'll proudly go into class and say that they just went to see Mrs. Ryan or Mrs. Scott or Miss Scott. But it's just, it's nice that it's not as hidden. It still is, very much, and there's certain things that we're seeing a bit more of a spike in that are still, a little bit more quiet, disordered eating. We're seeing a big increase in that post-pandemic. But I think at the same time, we are seeing so many kids coming in and saying, I'm struggling, or my friend is struggling, and they're such good supports for each other too. Yeah, they're great.
So that's what I really like. What I love about this generation is their acceptance of everybody, and from whatever background they're coming from or whatever problem they have. I'm always blown away by the kids' acceptance, and that acceptance just wasn't there when I was in school.
Nope. I agree.
The increased parent resources I see, Dr. Blake, you were talking about a half position for that, right? A parent coordinator?
Yep. So and that was a different grant. It's actually not a grant. It's part of our Chapter 70 money.
Right.
They may not even be aware of it. We're looking
Not
at a
aware.
school. We're looking at a school family liaison to help out with some of the parent connection
That would be
with some of our
amazing.
more difficult cases.
I love when positive things are happening and we have no idea. That's great.
Stay tuned.
The opposite way, I'm not such a fan. But
I will also say that we have a superintendent who's profoundly aware of the
Absolutely.
issues that confront
So
kids.
supportive. Yep.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Emma.
Sorry.
Yep, Emily, go ahead.
And this might actually be a Kathy Bryan question. I think this is amazing, and the fact that you're thanking us for anything, given what you guys do, not just this year in COVID, just in general, struck me. Just your credit as who you are and what you guys do. But I was sort of noticed as a mom of 2 boys that there's no men on staff anywhere.
Nope.
And given the importance of role modeling, and especially with social media and comparison and mental health and the stigma for young boys and eating disorders and body image that John was talking about, that he's seeing more and more among the young men, especially in high school, I'm wondering, is there anything going on to try and remedy that? I know hiring is hiring, but...
Absolutely. And I can say just, the recent time where we were able to hire the adjustment counselor, Kelly Scott, I don't believe there was a male applicant. And it's, we have historically, I think the more traditional like school counseling, guidance counseling, in the past it was actually like a long time ago it was a predominantly male field, I believe, just sort of based on when I've gone to the meetings over the years, but it's unfortunate. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. Yeah. And then one more note I meant to indicate too is we're part of the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce now, which this is our first year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And they are really highlighting, working a lot, connecting the school counseling directors for the high schools that are affiliated with that, and connecting with local community resources, and also recently just really have a huge emphasis on social emotional learning and basically mental health right now. They're hearing it from all of us that it's really like nothing any of us have seen, and they're really trying to help. So they're trying to help with resources. They connected us with with local state senators, representatives, and they're listening too. So I think it's just getting it out there. I think you hear it on maybe you hear it on the news, you hear it on social media, until it impacts you, you don't realize it is if anything, I think it's downplayed in what you read.
The other piece too that we didn't mention is our involvement with Ipswich Aware, which is a local organization around substance use and abuse.
Yep.
And so we do quite a bit of work with them as well.
So we are fortunate. We're just, again, some of these issues are challenging. It's, mental health counselors that are, the resources that are a little bit more, currently beyond our control, but we're hoping that we can, increase awareness, increase, involvement of mental health professionals, and encouraging them to come into schools, because unfortunately it's, it's becoming a little bit harder for them to make that change right now when they can go into private practice or do other things.
So again, thank you for coming in. I think this is such an important presentation for us to hear. Just if you're going to hit a bunch of things real quick. One is just the clinical definition of social emotional sometimes gets lost in what that really is and kind of those underlying feelings that kids have. And so I think it's important just talking about it and having that parental awareness too of these are the things that my kids may be dealing with, so that parents can see it and reach out if there's an important intervention or help that needs to be had.
Absolutely.
Second is, so I told you I wouldn't get them all. Staffing wise, your recommendations, I really think that's extremely important to this group, and just hearing are we prepared to address that even when emergency funds come out? Is it retaining positions? Is it adding? And being kind of passionate about making sure that we have the resources to address that. One of the questions that this committee heard a couple of weeks ago from one of our counterparts was, has there been thought of doing things in the summer? And really we're not equipped to be able to handle that, but what are the resources that families and students can have over the summer? Are there programs that we offer? I know at the younger levels there's kind of social skills programs for youngest kids, but what other resources are out there?
I know, yeah.
So, even now, it's April, so starting to talk about, especially this year, given the wait list and whatnot, starting to talk to my students about hey, listen, we are entering June almost, thinking about summer, what is your plan, right? And unfortunately, trying to get them set up with a counselor now and getting them in at least on a wait list so that maybe, right, by June we can have them see somebody. But in terms of that engagement, as far as, obviously I dabble in the email and, don't ignore if something comes up or anything over the summer, but, there isn't a lot. I'm not
not gonna lie.
Well, maybe making sure that mobile crisis number is kind of available to
Yes, yeah,
student
which is
populations or
email,
something,
yeah,
which
oh,
would be
yes.
great.
Yeah, email me, that comes like right back Correct. at you. Like,
In the summer too.
Info,
Yeah.
in the summer we make sure, because I have gotten those messages, years ago even. I happen to go on my email on a Thursday night in July and Miss May, I really need you. Oops. Is that me?
That was my
No.
alarm.
Okay.
What are you doing on my
I'm
computer?
trying to mute you, it's not working.
But I have gotten emails that are, and again, I just happened to have seen it and was able to address it, was able to call. So now we have it so that all of the staff have a reply, automatic reply when we're on vacation, that please contact, and I'm not accessing emails. Maybe, there's but we don't want to rely on that. And these are the numbers you call. This is what you need to do. Call 911, call Lady Behavioral Health.
The other thing I wanted to mention is just, I think how profound it is for you to come here and say, like, students are not all right, teachers are not all right. We live in a place that everybody wants to be optimistic and say, kids are doing great, we're seeing some of the issues, but not as many as we'd expect. Like, it's okay to say that, it's okay to raise the awareness, it helps people and families know I'm not alone, and we have a lot of work to do. So
Yep.
thank you for what you guys are doing.
Absolutely, thank you. And I can just say, I know we were discussing maintaining the current staffing. Kelly Scott, we were so fortunate to have her this year and next year with ESSER funds, but we would not, the kids would not, I can't even say, it's not about us, the kids would not be okay. There are many, many kids that were identified if we didn't have her. And it's a scary prospect. Because it's not just going to, when the funding runs out, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of, we really, and we want to be there and to be able to support the kids. So, yeah, and parents.
I mean, I think since I'm Mr. Institutional Knowledge Guy, from an institutional standpoint, the places where we've added positions over the last 5 or 10 years have been in the co-teaching model and in counseling. And they're worthy inclusions, and they represent really a pivot to some extent of our district to be more inclusive and also to support the social emotional needs and the mental health needs of kids, where historically that had almost been treated separately from school, or we just hadn't supported it in the way we have. And it's become an important role of schools. So when we get pushback for budgetary reasons on those specific additions to our district, you got to make it very clear. And I think our other boards are very aware of the issues that students are confronting. We got to make it clear that this is an important thing that schools are doing now that they maybe didn't do in the past. And it's
Do you
a
think
necessary
that's true? Because in this context, FinCom struck me as not aware of what our teachers and our educators and staff are dealing with, especially in this context. Are these positions, once the funding's gone, we'll lose the positions? Like, there really wasn't thought about or awareness of exactly what you're talking about, which is that our kids aren't okay, and it's not an instant fix, and it's not like ESSER funds disappear and voila, the kids are okay. I don't know.
I think there's an understanding, but there maybe isn't an understanding of how long it might take.
Yeah.
And there's educational remediation, and there's an inclusion of mental health services within the school district that wasn't previously available. And I think those are two different things. And I think that's an improvement.
And also, some of what we're seeing, which you mentioned, is not related to COVID. It's related to social media. It's related to what's happening in our culture right now, not the pandemic, and that is not going to go away.
Yeah. And it was already there, right? Like,
Right.
It's almost like COVID was this magnifying glass that's blown it up probably faster than it would have blown up if it hadn't happened.
But I mean, having the BRIGHT program, these were things we were in. There was a mental health crisis in 2019, but this has been literally life changing for these kids and life saving for a lot of kids.
Jed?
So, many of these positions are also a result of the passage of the override in 2015. So that this underscores the importance of this year's override. And we really need to get the message out and get that message out to the community. Excuse me?
I'm volunteering us, so we'll come talk if you need us.
Well, we need a letter, right? We need a letter to the editor, so.
Hold on.
On
Thank
this
you.
very subject, and this
Yeah.
very foundational reason that we need this override. So, that, I'll get in touch.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. This has
Thank
been
you.
really
Thanks as always,
interesting.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Music and the
Thank you.
maybe.
Thank you.
Play you out.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next on the agenda this evening, we have the NASDAQ demographic study presentation. And we have Karen Ledoux, who actually did the study along with one of her colleagues, Mr. Malone. And so this, I'm going to shortly, if everybody can log into Zoom, and I'm going to record this so that we can put it up on the website and we have it for future reference as well. So give us just a minute for everyone to log in.
Where's the login?
Is it on our email?
It's on the agenda.
The agenda.
Okay.
It's the title.
Gotcha.
Thing.
Karen, how are you?
I'm well. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody while we're logging on. Dr. Blake, you had let me know that I could screen share, but it still says it's disabled.
Because I haven't done it yet.
Okay. We'll get there. So while that's happening, I want to thank you all. We'll wait for everyone to log on. I'm sorry.
You should be able to screen share now, Karen.
Just inviting our
Yeah.
audience to
Yeah.
look if
Yep.
that's helpful.
We're all on.
Sorry.
I need my glasses.
Do you want mine?
Oh, you need yours too, right?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
And Dr. Blake, you'll let me know when we're ready to go.
I believe we are ready to go.
So it's a pleasure for Western to present the Ipswich demographic study and enrollment projections report. We partnered with Dr. Blake and Ipswich Public Schools to present this report to you today. Just a little background about NASDAQ. We've been around for over 70 years. Came out of the Harvard Graduate School of Education first, looking at issues of kindergarten and what they become. We assist districts in answering questions and exploring ideas. My colleagues, Mr. Malone, is here today. We both are educators at heart, as are most of the consultants at NASDAQ. Chris recently as a superintendent and myself as an assistant superintendent in the Massachusetts School District. So let's look at the introduction. I'm going to skip to the scope of the report, so what we were asked to do. We were asked to prepare some enrollment projections, but also to look at those factors that can influence enrollment projections in the future. So we looked at the census data, Warren Group, which is the public good equity placement, housing and urban development, local realtors, and the U.S. Census, in order to get a sense of the population of Ipswich, and also how that population shifts and changes when it comes to issues of residential construction or real estate sales. So we'll go through the census, and we'll go through some of those the impacts to the real estate and to residential construction, and look at the enrollment projections in particular. So for demographic information, it's important to go from large to small. When we look at the U.S. births and economic cycles, and as you look at this graph, you see the ups and downs, the baby boom of the U.S. Census, the 2008 recession, but also the decline in population of the U.S. and all. So it's important to think about this in context of New England. So what we have done is sort of look at the percent of change between 2018 to 2029, knowing that this is a partial of U.S. Census. But when you look at Massachusetts in particular, the enrollments have declined at 1.8%. So not as much as you see in some of the surrounding universities. For instance, Connecticut and New Hampshire, where you're seeing a higher percentage of the populations. of the population that have declined. If you look at the Ipswich population in particular, and I think what's interesting here is over this 30-year period, you've continued to increase the population. Even it was 13,809 in 2016 and 14,074 in 2020. So a steady increase and a steady population for Ipswich. The importance of thinking about the Ipswich public schools in particular is to look at the median age of the population. And that's this right-hand, the 2019 estimate. But for the United States, the median age of the population is 38.5. In Essex County, it's 40.6, but in Ipswich, the age is 48.4, which shows that you have a slightly older, more mature population, and it could get back to being the number of future births, which is your incoming kindergarten. If you look at the population in trends of years, this is the age breakouts for 2020 are not available, so this is based on the 2019 census. We all know that things became abruptly changed around that time. But to think that school-age children comprise 16.8% of the Ipswich population, knowing that 3.8% of the population is under the age of 5, those are the PPP. And it's important to consider that because it gives a picture of who will be part of those students in those schools. Also important to know is the age 65 or older is 22.4%. So that maturity population that we have. Another way of looking at the population trends is the percentage of K-12 students per household unit. And this tells you in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the town of Ipswich. And we'll focus on the bottom chart because that's what I think most interest to you is the town of Ipswich. So in 2020, 26% of your households had K-12 students in them. That's down from 38% in 2010, 37% in 2000, and more in line with what was going on in 1990, when over 30% of the households had K-12 students. So here's the births. We look particularly at the births, because these births are indicators of future students. These are your future kindergartners. So it's important to consider these babies, and that there's a varied look. If you look at 2017, which is here, there were 111 births, but now let's look at 2018, only 82 births. And so you see this varied look at the births over time is the way it is. But we'll look at the next slide, and it shows you that we've sort of consolidated. Between 2006 and 2011, you averaged 106 births. It decreased from 2012 to 2017 to 94. And as we look at 2018 to 2020, it's the provisional births. They haven't been confirmed yet. There were 93 per year. So we're seeing that the births are stabilizing over the past 10 years, which could lead to a stable kindergarten enrollment going forward, which is important to consider when you're thinking about the enrollment projections when you see them. So that's our deep dive into sort of the demographics. Then we looked at the trends in real estate, and I think it's important. We call them baby boomers. We're now calling them mature buyers who are thinking of downsizing. And what happens when they downsize is they vacate a 3 and 4 bedroom home, and they could be moving into a smaller 2-bedroom home or a 2-bedroom condo or apartment or over 55 housing. That frees up a home for a family to potentially buy. Millennials are now purchasing single-family homes in record numbers, and we had some great conversations with some local realtors that I'll share in a minute. But I think it's important to notice that in over 80% of the districts we work with, the real estate sales are 4 to 5 times larger than the number of building permits for new construction. What happens with a lot of taxpayers, a lot of community members, is they see a lot of building happening, and they're very concerned about what's going to happen to to the enrollment, it can have an impact, but to remember that those real estate sales are something also to consider. And the global pandemic continues to influence our nation's public health and economic stability in unpredictable ways, especially for our schools. And as school board members and community members, we know that all too well. So what we noticed, we used the information from the Warren Group, as I mentioned, the publisher of Bankers Agent, to look at the sales of single-family and multi-unit in Ipswich, and to look at the price of those units over time. And as you can see, this home over here gives you here the number of single-family homes sold, the single-family average median price, and you can see it escalating, especially these past 2 years, and then the number of condo units that have been sold. So what we did was that we analyzed this data a little bit more from the Warren Group, noting that before the last economic downturn in 2008, Ipswich had 121 single-family home sales, and the average median sales price was in the $435,000 range. During the economic downturn, less homes were sold, 99, and the average median sales price dipped to 377. What you see over the years of 2013 to 21, single-family home sales increased 140 units, more than before the economic downturn. And the average median sale price went up to in the $528,000 range. And in January of 2022, Ipswich sold 9 single-family homes, and the median sale price was $670,000. So you're seeing the residential home sales have rebounded. Average median sale price of single-family homes has increased steadily over the past 3 years. It's a place that people want to be. We spoke to many of the realtors in the area, and they noted that Ipswich is a desirable community, attracts many different demographic groups. They are seeing that the average sale price of homes for 2021 has been $700,000, and in 2020 was in the low $600,000. Across everywhere, sales are very strong. Open houses see lots of people attending. There are multiple bids, and that the type of buyer for these homes depends on the product availability. So there seems to be equal demand for family housing, what we call active adult or mature or empty nester housing. So let's look at the residential building permits. So we looked at the trends in real estate and seeing that there's high demand, but also that there is some building that's going on in Ipswich. And this is the housing and urban development data. Now this is reported by the town of Ipswich to HUD, and then HUD reports it out. So this may not necessarily be in exact conjunction with what we talked about with the town planner, but I wanted to show it to you to see that this is what is reported. And again, here's the year, and you can see the single-family homes in the 13 to 32 range, and you can see the multi-units in the past, 5, 6 years. It's the year of 2021 where you're seeing 19 of those multi-units. We had an opportunity to speak to Ethan Parsons, who was extremely helpful when we spoke to him about some of the construction that's happening in Ipswich. And he gave us this information. So there are no single-family projects currently approved and under construction, and that's an important distinction. When we look at what happens to enrollments, we only consider something that is currently under construction. So at Primrose Farm, there are 24 units, 20 duplexes, 4 single-family homes, and they're all 3 bedrooms. There's a 126 to 128 High Street, 7 units, 3 bedrooms, 83 High Street, 6 units, 3 bedrooms, and then Linebrook Village, 51 units, all 3 bedrooms. It's important to note here that if there is a 1-bedroom unit being built, that has little to no impact on enrollment. If there's a 2-bedroom unit being built, it has a minimal impact for enrollment. But as you can imagine, a 3-bedroom unit does have impact for enrollment. So we actually use an algorithm to determine, taking into account all of these 3-bedroom units, and the projected impact to the enrollment over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, we partition those, that number out because we know that through our research, 70% of those students are going to be in grades K to 5, 20% are going to be in 6 to 8, and 9 to 12, 10%. And that's because people, once their children are in a district, usually stay. So that's why. And so when you look at the projected impact to the enrollment over the next 3 to 5 years, for grades K to 5, it's 30 to 40 students based on these that are currently under construction. 6 to 8, it's going to be 10 to 15 students, and grades 9 to 12 will be 2 to 3. And we recognize that some of these are in different phases of completion, so that we can't know, not all 51 units of Linebrook Village are going to be built at once. So they come in phases. Another caveat that we are noticing is that in some of the research that we've done, sometimes 2 adult households are buying 3-bedroom homes and converting 2 of those bedrooms to offices when they're thinking of staying at home. So the idea that all of these 3 bedrooms will be inhabited by families with children is not as clear as it used to be, given the new way of thinking. So now I wanted to go over the approved projects currently not under construction. Now, we do not consider these as part of our student yield when we do the projected enrollments, but it's important to keep them in mind because they could come under construction or it could take 2, 3, 4 years before it happens. And you can see that the 15 market is 13 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms, Essex Pastures is 151 units of 1 to 3 bedrooms, and 25 Pleasant is 4 units with 3 bedrooms per unit. So the potential impact for enrollment, you can see there, grades K to 5, 15 to 20 students, grades 6 to 8, 5 to 7, and grades 9 to 12 will have a median impact. So continuing, the Warren Group does a nice job of giving us a book profile of the town of Ipswich, and it's just a celebration of who you are, the rich and varied history, the growth of the suburban town began in the 1950s, your town's attraction, which I personally enjoy, especially the train station, the forests and parks, all of those things make it a wonderful place for people to visit and to move to. So, and here's some housing details. It's important to think about how many of the houses are owner-occupied, and although the 2020 data is limited, you can see that it's going to be the similar amount. About 75% are owner-occupied, and the rest are renter-occupied or for seasonal use. So I wanted to go over our demographic study and enrollment forecast methodology. Because we look at student migration into and out of schools, including the movement from private schools and choice in and choice out enrollments, the stability of grades 1 through 8, which means the in and out migration of students. So grades 1 through 8, again, when families move to kindergarten and first grade, they usually stay. And so the stability is sound for the Ipswich Public Schools. We already talked about the births as they relate to kindergarten enrollments and how we look at the housing and urban development. But the important aspect of today's conversation is how does NASDAQ see the enrollment forecast methodology which we've done when we take into account the student yield from housing under construction. So it's informed by the local realtors, it's informed by the Warren Group, it's informed by the residential building permits. And I want to draw your attention to the third bullet, because the student yield is calculated considering the potential number of school-age children who might occupy any housing under construction. We assign student yield to grade level using our methodology without certainty of the actual age of potential students. And of note, the smaller the number of student yield, the more difficult it is to forecast enrollment. So let's look at the enrollment projections. And for this section, we're going to take you through the historical enrollments because I think it's important to look backwards in order to be able to look forward. So for the historical enrollments, let me explain this chart to you at the top. This is the historic enrollment by grade. You can see the birth year here, 2016, when I mentioned that there were 88 births. I want to call to your attention, you enrolled 127 kindergartners. So they're the birth, people are moving to Ipswich to go to school here. The year before is an anomaly, I think, because it could have been a COVID, but look back to 2014 birth year of 88 students where you enrolled 103 kindergarten. This has impact as you progress through the grades. Down here is the historical enrollment and grade combination, and I'm going to focus here on K-5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. And you can see the declines over the past 10 years. Here's the percentage of K-12 over the past 10 years, 19.6% decline in enrollment population over those past 10 years. So let's look ahead. This is just another chart for those of you for whom that's a great visual. And why don't someone go to the next slide for me. There. So I wanted to look at the projected enrollment. So as you see, we're projecting throughout for the grades. You're going to see the progression throughout the years. These are provisional births. I mean, these are births that we know, but here are the provisional births in darker color. But that how the birth impacts the kindergarten enrollment number. We keep pre-K there. Those are pretty standard numbers. They're stable. But I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that now what's happening for Ipswich, this contains that student yield of those students that I had mentioned prior, that part of that increased residential construction. This chart assumes increased residential construction. And at the end of this presentation, I have put the projection that we had sent the district in October just for your reference. But you can see for grades K through 5, and we look out 3 to 5 years. Those are the most reliable years when it comes to doing enrollment projections. We like to look at 3, but 5 is sometimes a more realistic number for districts. The 10 years is just to give you a guideline as to what might be happening, but you can see the stabilization of the enrollment projections over the next several years in grades K to 5, grades 6 to 8 over the next 3 years, and then a little dip and then a dip down. In grades 9 to 12, the same is true. So we look at the K-12 over the next 10 years, we're projecting that you'll see a 4.4% decline. So that, to me, says there's going to be a stabilization in the enrollment projections for Ipswich. That also occurs without this assumes increased residential construction, but it gives you an idea of how you might plan for the future knowing that construction is happening. I don't know why my computer is misbehaving, but it's here. So here's some historical and projected enrollment. It's just another way to look at it. But you can see the leveling off of the enrollments over the next 10 years. This is by grade span, so that you can get a sense of K to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, the way that the enrollments are trending. This is another look at it with the actual enrollment numbers per grade over the next 10 years, historical and projected. And then the birth, showing you the birth line is the darker blue. The K enrollment, we have historically had, except for that one good year in 2020, that more K enrollment than birth, showing that to us that people are moving into the Ipswich community and to the Ipswich public schools. And here's some of that additional data that we take into account. The residents in the non-parochial and public schools, the choice in, choice out, homeschool students, HUD data, and then enrollment in career and technical schools. And I wanted to show you this projected. This is the status quo for your, just for reference purposes. You can see, again, it's a 5.4 decline without the increased enrollments or student yield from the residential construction. So that's the demographic study in a nutshell. we have been pleased to work with you. I want to commend the community and Dr. Blake for consulting with us. It was our pleasure. And we would certainly entertain any questions as the chair seems appropriate.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much.
I had one. I'm muted.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Is this Cheryl?
I didn't see. Is everybody?
Everybody needs to be muted that's in here.
That doesn't look muted to me.
Brunies.
Go ahead.
That's all I need to say. Okay. I didn't see the Brunies, the possible Brunies development, unless they changed the name.
Is that Essex
Essex
Pastures?
Pastures.
It's Essex Pastures.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was one of our mile. Never mind. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind. Thank you.
So,
That should take care of whoever's speaking.
I don't know if you can hear me. We're planning to build an elementary school. When you look at calculations of elementary population, 700 to 720, where would you build an elementary school to handle those students? And to what extent do you address pre-K, for example, preschool, which seems to be expanding for public preschool, and those kind of things? I don't know if that's inside or outside of your purview, but we'll need, as part of our upcoming study for constructing a new elementary school, need to project our population for that elementary school. And so that would be important to consider the size.
So the question that you asked was what size school to purchase?
Yeah.
Or,
To build.
To build?
Yeah, student population.
Oh, so that's a district-based decision. If you look at your current configuration of K to 5, would you build a K to 5 school, knowing that with the increased residential construction, you would have this many, you could potentially have this many students. Actual projections are articulated in the last slide, which will give you that idea of what size to build. I know the school building authority has guidelines for how it gets calculated, what type of school is built, and the size, and that's different from what NESEC would be able to give you information about. And then the pre-K expanding is also another district decision. We've seen districts who have expanded pre-K and found room for additional pre-K classrooms, done more of a, the Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, not full days, 2 sessions in a day, those types of things. So there's multiple ways to do pre-K, and again, it's a district-based decision.
Chad?
Thank you very much for this report. The report shows a flat growth going forward in projected enrollment, but we have, with our existing housing stock, you've projected roughly about 50 students in approved housing, and then the to-be approved housing, especially with the Essex Pastures development, another 35 students. So that's 88 to 90 students. So I'm surprised that it's flat. Where is the diminution, and where's the students falling off that will account for the 88 new students in the to-be approved and already approved projects?
So we only include the already approved into our student yield, so that's the first set of enrollment projections. They're spaced over 3 to 5 years because we can't know when students will be moving in. So it's not as though 88 students are going to appear for the 2023-24 school year. So that's where they'll slope. If you look at the projections, which is, I don't know if you can still see this.
Page 30, right? Okay.
This is status quo. So when you look at the projections over time, and then go to the one for increased, whatever the one is.
Right.
If you look at the other ones, the projected enrollment, you can see the increase a little bit. I'm sorry.
Sure, but we're not accounting for, we've got a big project that's in town. So you're not accounting for things like at the 35 students in the Essex Pastures and the other 2 projects you referenced then, in these enrollments.
No, we don't include those because they haven't been built.
Okay.
But when you look at the potential impact, and Essex Pastures has 151 units. Some of them are 1 bedroom, 2
Right.
bedroom, 3 bedroom. And as I said, the 1 bedrooms will have no impact to student enrollment. The 2 bedrooms have minimal impact. So I need to get that to the paper to figure out how many are hit. But that's the short answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
So we would have to manually potentially add these numbers in. to their
As projects get
projections.
approved.
Right, but you're talking a total of 25 kids. Over the district?
Essex Pastures, 48 are 1 bedrooms, so there's no impact for the money. 89 are 2 bedrooms, there's minimal impact to student enrollment. And 17 are 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
And that's, only probably 15 to 20 kids that would come out of those. So that's the important aspect of thinking about, sometimes community members and, everyone drives by and sees it's 151 units, but the impact to the enrollment is going to, I think, be minimal from that.
Karen, as you and I discussed, I think this, looking around the room, there's some surprised looks on folks' faces.
Not me. That's what I expect.
In that, I think many people, I won't say everybody, many people thought that with all of the construction going on, we were going to see this significant increase in the student population, and I think that was a big part of why we commissioned NESDEC to do this study for us, and so this provides a lot of great information for folks to dig in on, but at the outset, it is surprising, and you and I we discussed that when you initially presented the preliminary report.
Right, because I think it's important to know that it's sort of industry standards that guides our calculation of that projected impact and how it's distributed over the K-12. So I think that's important to keep into perspective. Knowing that what's happening going forward are all 3-bedroom homes, so that's why you see that impact. But here, that it's a lesser impact. The 13 units in 15 market will have a very minimal impact on the enrollments. What we can't know is if some of those mature residents who are going to leave 3-bedroom homes are going to buy into any of these. We can never calculate them.
Sure.
We've tried many ways through conversations with realtors, but it doesn't, there is no way to quantify it. So that 3 or 4 bedroom home that they vacate to downsize comes in the market, usually families with children will buy.
And we have followed state projections pretty well. We've had a blip this year, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we've followed state projections.
Other questions for Karen?
So we have this report available to circulate?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we circulate it to the FinCom and select?
Certainly. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is being recorded, so we'll be able to post it as well and post the report online.
Yeah. I think it's, thank you so much for coming and making this presentation. It's a lot of data for us to dig into, but, I think it's really going to help us with our planning in years to come, and it's good to have the more data we have, the better to make our decisions, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to work with you.
All right. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Shall we leave our Zoom meeting?
Yes, we're we are going, yes, we can leave our Zoom meeting. They're already gone.
So Hugh, it's all about the births, right? We're under 100. I mean, I remember you saying that a long time ago.
Right.
And the reality is, each time from Powderhouse Village to all these things, you get gloom and doom and people, decrying the decline of Ipswich due to low-income housing and clustered housing and everything else. But the fact is, we have a lot of older people, and our birth rate has been declining overall. So we may have more move-ins, but I think we're happy to see a consistent school population going forward instead of a declining school population.
Right.
And it gives us, honestly, something to plan for reasonably when we're making plans about the future of the district.
Yeah.
Because it looks like the numbers will be steady
Right.
for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Next up, we have warrant article discussion on Article 17, the open space bond authorization list. I believe, Jeff, this was something you wanted to speak to?
So at our last meeting, we deferred action on this, I guess until tonight, because we didn't have information about what the effect of adding a parcel to the open space bond list was. And this was particularly the parcel on Mile Lane, which is adjacent to the ball field site. I did speak with Ethan Parsons, and he referred me to Molly Shea, who's the manager of the open space for the town, and she gave me some history on both of them. So what this warrant article would do, it would be only to allow it to be added to the list of open space parcels that have been identified by the town, and that makes it so that there's additional funds that are available if the town were to have an opportunity to purchase it. It doesn't put anything as far as a permanent restriction for its purpose. It wouldn't necessarily be that it had to be acquired for open space. The reason behind both of these, both the Candlewood parcel and the Mile Lane parcel being sought after for open space, is both their proximity to water protection areas. So there is not currently an offer to purchase. It's not Chapter 61A land, which would give the town a right of first refusal. But if they get added, it gives an opportunity to have different financing sources if the town could do it. So based on that, I don't see that there's a disadvantage from a potential school building site. Ethan did have concerns about whether this portion of the site could even be used as part of the building project. We briefly discussed whether if there was a school building project that went in the ball fields, whether this portion could be used for athletic fields or other passive open recreation, all things that could be discussed. So based on that, I think my inclination is that I would support the warrant article. And I think that with that other information, we can make a determination on our committee position this evening.
Okay.
I'd agree with that. Thanks for getting all that information. That was helpful.
Move to support Article 17.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up, override discussion. I have a little bit of update on this. For those who are not aware, the Select Board had their warrant hearing on Monday evening and voted 4-1 in support of the override. FinCom had their warrant hearing last night. They voted 5-3 in support of the override. One member was absent, so those are sort of some updates on board support. So we have majority board support from the other two boards. Campaign is progressing. Letters to the editor, website's up, social media postings. There will be more outreach to the community shortly. I just want to make sure everyone on this committee knows that, we need everyone's help in doing what they can to support this. It's, it's an important priority for us, and so I'd like everybody to feel empowered to jump in, help out, ask what they can do to help. It's less than 5 weeks away to town meeting. In terms of messaging, I think the messaging's following the fact that the school committee in the past of the 2015 override has followed through on their promise to make the money last and, stretch it out as long as possible, which we've been able to do. We know the timing's right. We know the money is needed to fill the gaps in our budget in the future. And one thing I thought we could do as a school committee is to do some outreach perhaps to some local groups that we've done in the past year, the Rotary, the Sisters, any other groups that people would want to suggest to do some outreach for. So I don't know if that's sort of an update on the campaign. I don't know if people have any questions or discussion around the override. Joe.
Greg's got a letter
Yeah.
that I've been going to the override meetings, and he's got a letter to go out. Yeah, I think he was anxious to get the board votes, the other board votes before a letter went out, and so now he's got one ready on deck. I know that Lori Bays asked today about a letter to the editor on the social emotional differences between education in the old days and education today. We certainly saw that. I counted 17 staff members, not including the nursing staffs. I don't know if they're I don't know if we should be soliciting people within the district, frankly, that work for the district to write a letter to the editor. But that's a question for you that you don't have to answer now, but I would like to know that shortly, because I'll help solicit some of those.
I think they can write them as independent citizens of Ipswich, not in their role as school employees. You have to be careful with that.
I get it, yeah, and that memo that we got from Liz Valerio at the beginning of the campaign, we all need to also reread that memo to make sure that we stay within our bounds and what we can do.
They could certainly write a letter, I would think, about the current situation in the schools and the needs and the differences, now versus.
Yeah, so I know that Lori Bays is chairing, Lori and Sasha Sopek are chairing this override committee, and they're looking for good subjects to write letters to the editor. I think we saw two excellent ones tonight.
Yeah. In terms of demographics, the elementary, preschool and elementary parents are, are groups that we want to educate on this and let them know that it's happening and why it's needed. Because they haven't, most of those families have not lived through the cuts that many of us lived through 7-8 years ago. So those are important groups to go after. So Jeff and Emily. On it. And many others. So any other?
To that point, do we know whether anyone's arranged childcare or any other measures to help people get to town meeting on, because it's a Tuesday night again?
We talked about that last night.
I wasn't here, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, we talked about it at the override meeting.
Why is it a Tuesday meeting? Why is it Tuesday night instead of on a Saturday?
Well, if it's on a
It's
Saturday,
historically
everyone's at
Tuesday
soccer.
night.
I think it's an advantage.
It's always been Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So we're going back to that.
It's not a good time for anyone.
Do you know if childcare has been done?
I mean, really, in practice, a lot of times it means if there are two
One
parents in there,
goes.
one parent can go, one stays
Correct.
back.
Right.
It's a 2/3 ballot question, which
Yep.
doesn't help.
So last time they had high school kids doing a civic thing, so I think that'll be brought up next meeting. I think
Yeah,
your
if we can
comment
coordinate that, if we can coordinate a location, the gym. Well, actually, the meeting's in the
Meeting
gym.
is in the gym, but
Okay.
we can
The
look
upstairs
at
gym.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could certainly coordinate.
Lock up the good instruments before the kids come in.
Right.
So in terms of color commentary about the meeting the other day with FinCom, the opposition was exclusively about timing. not against the concept or the implementation of our override. I think everyone agreed to the implementation of the override as is and the future implementation of our override strategy. So I think that we won't see dedicated institutional opposition to the override. We may see individual citizens who fight it for year-to-year reasons, but I think from the three boards, I don't think you'll see formal opposition in any way against the concept of it. No one will argue it away as something we don't need. I think that's advantageous for us. Even if we face, an opposition vote or a divided vote, it's not going to be a heavy one. So we'll have a chance to make our case, and I don't think there'll be anyone on the boards anyway fighting directly against our idea. And I think that's the most important piece.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense, Brian, of staff support discussions around it, or?
I haven't formally taken a poll, but any of the staff that I have spoken to very much in support and understand the need to maintain the programming that we have and the risk of a cliff a year out.
Right. Okay. Any more discussion on the override? Okay. Superintendent's administrative report.
Okay. Over the last few weeks, the focus continued to be on the budget, the override, and preparing for the on-site that's scheduled for next week. I met with Willie Whitmore and Marcia Gray to discuss the previous override and gain some understanding about the messaging and the process for communicating the need for the override. I also met with the town manager and Chris Bellavacqua from the Y, looking at summer programming. And as you know, we had bean counting 2 weeks ago now, and we actually spent a considerable amount of time discussing summer program options for children in Ipswich and social emotional needs versus academic needs. I want to spend a few minutes tonight just talking a little bit about our ELL program. As you know, one of my goals this year was to work with the EL teachers and help to build the program. We've got several new staff members in the program. Over the course of the year, we've inventoried and ordered new curriculum and assessment documents. We began unpacking the WIDA standards for English language development. And we're establishing best practices across the districts. We've got a lot of work going on between the two elementary schools and the middle and high school now, much more than in the past. In addition to this work, they're also in the process of developing a website for staff and families to access information on the program, and we're hoping to be able to launch that by the end of the school year. We've increased our ability to provide translation services to our families, either in print version or to have interpreters at any of our IEP and different parent meetings. We have one of the EL teachers is going to be running a summer course for the rest of our teachers that need to earn the required PDPs for recertification. As part of our tiered focus monitoring process that DESE does, this is completely separate from the on-site that's coming next week. The EL program is being monitored by DESE as well this year. And so last week, the EL teachers spent an entire day organizing and uploading all of the required documents for that DESE, to the DESE website for their review. Currently, we have 31 EL students who are enrolled in our program, and they're speaking 6 different languages. So we've seen a significant increase this year. I participated in the first meeting of the Human Rights Commission along with members of the community, the town manager and the police chief. The group is a good cross-section of the community with a wide variety of background and skill sets. The governing boards of Crest Collaborative and North Shore Education Consortium also met over the last 2 weeks to present, discuss, and approve their budgets for the coming year. I was out of state for a few days, as you know, for dealing with a family issue. We've made our final preparations for the on-site review next week. Laura and I have met virtually with our contact person, Alex, and we reviewed what the expectations were for next week and the schedules and answered any lingering questions that either of us had. They'll be on site Monday and Thursday, and they'll be conducting, and Tuesday they'll be doing, Monday and Thursday they'll be doing virtual, they'll be on site doing interviews. Tuesday, they'll be doing virtual meetings, which is, I believe, is when the school committee has theirs, as well as the elementary teachers. In addition to the interviews and focus groups, they'll be doing classroom observations on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. All of the participants have been notified, and I'll be sending out a reminder email to the staff tomorrow, just providing some additional information. You know, as I said in my last report, looking forward to showcasing the great work that's happening in the district. It'll be interesting to see what their take is, and you know, what feedback we get for, you know, areas that we can continue to grow in. I met with Bev and the 2 elementary principals a couple of times to discuss preschool locations. At this point, we've collectively decided to house an additional preschool classroom at the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School for next year at least. If necessary, because we still don't know the numbers, we're looking at an additional kindergarten class, although we budgeted it at, in the Winthrop budget. If we need to have that additional class, we're going to locate that based on the student enrollments that we have and we know of. We'll be able to do that at the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School. That's going to free up space at the Winthrop School, and it's not going to require us to have any additional expenditure of funds for, you know, with another building somewhere, and we're able to move. We have already budgeted for the additional classrooms as far as teaching staff, and so we'll be able to staff the additional rooms without an issue, and the specialists will be able to work between the 2 schools. So we're comfortable with that. You know, again, it was a lot of discussions. There were still some small logistical pieces that we're working out. We're in the process of looking at schedules for the specialists, and then we'll have more information forthcoming, you know, and notifying families that might be impacted by that additional classroom. So, the Vision 2030 Working Group, Budget Subcommittee, Policy Subcommittee, Race and Equity Working Group. I've had my monthly meeting with the union president, the EDP director. Speaking of EDP, registration will be going out in the week, I think the week right after April break. We're going to open it up to existing families first, as well as the incoming kindergarten. Actually, kindergarten information night is tonight, I believe. Joe Gill, the EDP director, was there presenting tonight, so we'll be able to provide information to those families as well. And then today I had a Mass Association of School Superintendents Executive Board meeting with the commissioner. And that brings us up to tonight. So I'll do COVID numbers next.
Pre-K, just back to that, so
Yep.
keeping the classroom.
We're going to keep the 2 classrooms existing at Winthrop there.
Okay.
We're going to, the additional classroom that we're looking to have will be at the Doyon.
So will families start to get notified? 'Cause
Yes.
I know that was kind of held up. And
Yep.
creating
Yep.
some concern
Yes.
for some families.
Yeah. Yep.
COVID numbers.
Yep, so COVID numbers, we're seeing an uptick in our numbers, unfortunately. I think well, I know, I reported 23 cases to the state this week. More than half of those cases, though, came from the choral program that took place last weekend. We had the program was, I think those kids were either on Friday or Saturday, and by Monday we had cases popping, and I think 12 or 14 of those students, that they were all on the same bus together, unmasked, and they all popped. I've been in contact with the state about it. I've been in contact with the director of the music festival that the kids were at, just to see if it was if they're seeing any increases or heard from any of the other schools. They have not. So at this point, I'm thinking that it was one of our students, and it's isolated to that group. Out of an abundance of caution last night, or the day before yesterday, actually, I made the decision to have all students that were participating in the String Fest, because they were across schools. We had a couple of kids that were in both the choral program and the strings program. So I made the decision to have all students that were participating in that masked during rehearsals and during the performance. They were all pretty close together in the pit and on stage. So, and I made it, I strongly encourage parents who were attending that event to be masked as well. I streamed it last night from home, and there were over 100 people that were streaming it. So I think folks that were not comfortable coming out to the event were able to see it, and the video was actually great quality. So there were also a few students that were involved in the Model UN trip as well that tested positive. So we think we had some isolated events that contributed to that spike, and we'll continue to see what the rates are. We've had a couple of other cases during the course of the week. I think we're up to 25 at the end of school today, so that's 2 more than I reported yesterday. So we'll see what tomorrow brings for my weekly message. The positivity rate in town is 0.04%, and they're reporting 6 cases in the town. So we'll continue to participate in the testing program. Initially, the state had said that the testing program would likely end after April vacation. With this spike, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're continuing to participate in it. If we've had some families opt out of it as the numbers dropped, and I think we have some folks that are opting in now, and that's okay too. Both parents and staff members for kids. So we haven't received any official word, so as soon as I hear, we'll get that information out.
I've got some more concerts coming up. There's wind, though, so it's going to be tough to mask a flutist.
They all have the masks, the holes in them, which have also proven not to be.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I think for my concern in making that decision 2 days ago was it was the day after all these cases were popping. And so I had to make a decision in the moment
I'm glad you did.
to protect as many kids as I thought were going to be together. And we had 200 plus kids on the stage and in the pit at one point. So I just thought it was, the right decision to do that. Now, if we continue to see cases rise, maybe that's a conversation we have next week again about masking. I don't know.
So most of those cases were in the high school, though?
They were all high school.
Yeah, and there was a fair amount of overlap between the chorus kids, the Model UN kids, and the orchestra kids. At least there were multiple kids overlapped in that.
I think there were 3.
Okay.
I think there were 3 that the nurses identified anyway.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for
Well-
making that decision.
Yeah,
by
I
the way.
support that
You're welcome.
decision as well. Any other questions, Dr. Blake? Okay, subcommittee, working group, and liaison reports. We met last week, so who's met since last week?
We met Vision 2030, which, did we meet this week or last week?
that was last week.
All right, so we
I think.
already reported on that.
It's all running together.
DEI.
DEI met.
I forgot about operations. Yep.
Yeah, so
operations
we-
met and policy.
DEI met for what is potentially our final working group meeting. We got through all the policy work that we wanted to do, all the drafting, and we spent most of the time discussing sort of the future of the working group. Is there a future of the working group? How to continue in the work, and what sort of makes sense. We had some discussion about transitioning it to a liaison position to the district working group. That way, if there is something that arises in that working group that would require additional policy work or something like that, that could feed back. It seems like a conversation we had probably at the workshop over the summer to
Yeah.
figure that piece out. But yeah, I think the group overall did a great job identifying the policy work that needs to be done and drafting those policies and really trying to do it from a very objective perspective, thinking through all the different groups of people in our community, in our schools. I'm just proud of the work that we did.
Yeah, thank you.
Bob,
So-
do you want to do policy?
Yeah, policy.
Sorry.
Matt?
Yes, policy met, and we have finished most of the work for the year. There will be some more policies from section I, which is instructional, coming forward, I think, at the next meeting. And tonight, we want to do a read-through for you, a public read-through of a brand-new policy, which we'll be voting on at the next meeting. But we just want to kind of put it out there. When Masco did a policy similar to this last year, they invited public comment. This may be something that people want to comment on, so we wanted to just read it, and then if people have input, they're welcome to provide it at the next meeting. So this is a meeting, it doesn't have an official policy number yet or lettering, but we are calling it, at this point, Policy IDEA, which stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Policy. And it reads, the Ipswich School District is committed to embedding diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism in all aspects of education and learning for our students, faculty, staff, and community. This should be done in adherence to Policy IB on academic freedom, which you all voted on at the last meeting. There are 3 complementary components necessary to achieve these goals: curriculum, experiences, and professional development. It is important that each of these occur annually. A, curriculum. The district's curriculum and activities must holistically represent the world's many perspectives and voices, including the work, lives, and contributions of various marginalized identities such as BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, LGBTQ+, women, diversely abled, etc., in various fields such as STEM, business, government, arts, literature, music, sports, activism, and more, and must be informed by pedagogy experts in diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and include the history of oppression, injustice, resistance, and counter-resistance, education, activism, and legislation, as well as current systems of privilege and power. B, experiences. The district must provide our school community with the experiences necessary to be aware, thoughtful, and active global citizens who are prepared to recognize and promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. The district must ensure that these experiences foster an understanding of the repercussions of discrimination, oppression, and bias, respect and celebrate differences, and strive towards the creation of equitable and just systems. And C, professional development. The district must provide professional development, discussions, and self-directed learning on diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and other difficult conversation training to all faculty, staff, administration, and the committee. So that is the policy, and we will be discussing it amongst ourselves, voting on it at the next meeting, and if anyone has public comment, they're welcome to provide it.
I think based on our discussion at policy, I think the reason we wanted to read it aloud tonight was to get it into the record, but then also allow at the next meeting, at citizens' comments, if anyone has anything they want to say or give input, we would welcome that at the next meeting.
Are there parallel policies to this anywhere in our policies, for example, beyond anti-racism, about diversity or special education or any other marginalized groups or anything? Or is this a standalone thing separate just for?
There's certainly, we do have anti-discrimination policies, right, which include things like, how we treat our staff and hiring practices. But this is kind of more of a philosophical piece, but it also is, saying it should be done annually. So there's nothing quite like this.
And it dovetails with the academic freedom piece and is really just as a district supporting this work.
And do you want to talk a little bit about the process of how the policy got developed? I mean, it was, we had looked at other similar policies in other districts, and the DEI working group, I believe, spent time.
There was only one, Masco. And ours, it looks substantially different than theirs. Mm-hmm. We started with theirs as sort of a framework. Yeah. But I think it was important in the working group that we didn't want this to be a policy that was inflammatory in any way, and that was really trying to be sensitive to all perspectives on all of these issues, whether or not they were personally held by us, because we really felt like that was the best way to honor the intent, and to really make it a space for discussion, as hard and ugly as it can be, and for the district to wrestle with these issues. I think what we've seen is nobody quite knows how to address these concerns, from administration down to students, but students want them addressed, and they want them discussed, and they want to be supported in their discussion of this, and so that's really what we were trying to do.
Thank you. Other discussion on this new policy? Okay, so we will bring it to the next meeting for further discussion and vote. Did we cover all the groups that have met?
No. Operations met 2 nights ago, and I sent an email to everyone this afternoon, which includes the end-of-cycle summative evaluation report that we all need to fill out. We need to fill out only the highlighted section. I also sent you in another separate email the goals, Dr. Blake's goals, and they will correspond by letter and number and letter to what you are to rate Dr. Blake on. Notes, there's room for notes, so those are always important and always good to have. And we'd ask that you'd get them, hand all of these in to Greg no later than the 28th, Thursday the 28th, which is the week after vacation, so that Greg can read them into the report on the May 5th meeting. It's important that we do this now because we're trying to avoid having new members evaluate Dr. Blake on one meeting's worth of experience. We continue to have that, so I know Hugh and I are stepping off the board. It'd be good to get you some in my input as well.
Yeah, it's also important to have the first deadline, then the second deadline.
No,
and
no,
then
no.
Really, really, really hard.
No, April 28th, Hugh. I said, that's how I said it at the operational meeting. I said April.
Weekend, I'll be like,
April 28th, Hugh. So we do know.
Yep. And as part of the operations subcommittee discussion, I will start a folder, but if folks have specific things that they want to see, whether it be agendas for meetings or things like that, I'll be glad to upload them, but it didn't, we talked about it, and it didn't seem that folks wanted an accounting of every minute. So I guess I'll leave it to folks for whatever information you want me to provide. I'll gladly upload it.
But you're uploading something
Yeah,
similar
yes.
to last year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when, that's a great statement. When do you think
Yeah.
that will go out to us?
Early next week.
Okay.
I have a question, and I've asked this before, and it's still, I guess, seems odd to me that the information we're given to do your evaluation is from you, vetted by you, and then it's about you.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's great,
Yep. So actually, we talked about that, and as part of the operations, well, I guess I'll just keep going. So,
Jeff, Jeff, go ahead.
So we talked about it, and Brian brought up again that this form of this specific form of evaluation doesn't lend itself to a lot of places of being able to go outside of the box, other than the notes section. And he said that there are certainly other models of evaluations, and we talked about using a different form, but then we also talked about other ways of gathering input, whether that's direct communications from administrators or teachers or 360s or something else. Brian's going to survey some other districts and how they're looking at it, and I think that for the next evaluation cycle, we should be looking at a way that gives us a more holistic approach or review of Brian's year, and not specifically be tied to some goals that potentially get shelved for one reason or another.
Right.
That we made 12
well,
months
I
ago.
don't even, it's not even about that so much. There's, if you take any one of the goals that integrates into a part of the district, like ELL, why are we not hearing from the ELL staff? How did it go? What can be improved upon? What worked really well? What didn't? I mean, that's an evaluation. This is like looking over what you read us every
Goals,
week,
right.
and it just feels very empty, I guess, as an actual substantive evaluation. And I don't know that we need to dig into other forms that might be overcomplicating it
Well,
versus
I think looking at other sources of input. So hearing from those teachers, but having a way, I don't know if we can change it now if we're set up in one way to gather feedback, and then all of a sudden having another one kind of brought in. I don't know if it can be done this cycle, but I certainly agree with the lack of transparency or perspective that we're hamstrung by.
The operations subcommittee will be down a member in a couple of weeks, and I know the future sitting operations subcommittee wants to look exactly at that shortly. I mean, that was what I got out of the meeting. So.
Well, realistically, aren't all subcommittees down all members? Don't we all reshuffle?
Yeah, we'll have to reshuffle this.
Yeah,
It's not down all members.
I think
down
people
No,
tend to.
You mean for one meeting or something?
Well, I'm stepping off. I'm on operations. I'm on climate. I'm on audit. So those positions will need to be filled. Hugh's on
budget and athletics.
Budget and athletics. Those
right.
need to be filled.
Yeah, but my point is they all need to be filled, and just because you're holding a seat now does not follow that it needs to be the same makeup absent just filling the vacancy.
No, but I think realistically though, people tend to gravitate toward the same ones. You don't have to stay on the same ones, but like to Hugh's point, he's always been on budget, always been on budget
Yeah, but
subcommittee.
it'd be nice to
you know.
shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I remember
Absolutely.
last
It's up
year
to the
Chuck
chair.
got
The
sent,
chair
he
makes
asked
those-
for requests
Yeah.
of what you would want
Yeah.
to be on.
Right, and I
And
didn't
then
get on committees that I was hoping to get on, and I would like to know that, like, with the incoming members, just because there's not a vacant seat, well, maybe if you've been on something for 2 years and there's,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
should be shuffled,
Yeah.
shuffle
Yeah.
it all be up for grabs.
Sure, shake it
So,
up.
usually, traditionally, it's done in July.
I know, I've been,
Okay.
okay, but thank you.
Okay, well, there's going to be a vacancy in operations, so maybe someone can fill it until July.
Moving on. Anyone else met, working groups, well, subcommittees, mutual concerns, negotiations? I think we're good, okay. New business. No? What?
I don't know, I feel like we're all waiting for something to happen.
No. We are.
Kate, just on the announcements, it does not say when our next meeting is, and I know that we're not sticking to the schedule that's
Yes,
posted.
as
Right.
far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, it is April 28th
No.
is our next meeting.
we're not-
May,
No.
May 5th.
We're meeting
May
the
5th,
28th.
right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, wait, so when, we're meeting next again, then on the 5th?
May 5th. Right.
We have a bit of a lapse.
3
Okay.
weeks instead of 2.
Okay. Vouchers and bills are all set. We do not have a consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Kate, nicely done.
9:28, not bad. It's not the 9 o'clock meeting, but
Multiple presentations.
this was